What if I told you the protein powder you've been spending money on for years isn't doing what you think it's doing? Because I stopped using it and nothing changed. In fact, everything got better. You see, I spent years buying protein powder from the time I came to the US. Every brand, every flavor, and every new formula the industry pushed out. And then one day, I stopped completely. And what happened next changed the way I think about nutrition forever. So here's the thing. When I started training, I was a very skinny kid, trying so hard to put on some muscle. And almost every single successful bodybuilder in the muscle magazines and in every single ad was telling me the same thing. You need protein powder. You need supplements because you can't get enough from food alone. And I believed it, but I didn't have access to it. You see, growing up in Trinidad, protein powders were prohibitively expensive. And as a kid going to school, there was no way I could afford them. So I trained as hard as I could and ate as best as I could with the eggs, fish, chicken, and peanut butter sandwiches that I had access to, but all the while feeling that there was something missing. So whenever I came to the US on vacation, I would use every single cent I had to buy protein powder. And back then, they didn't taste very good. And I'd only have enough money to buy just one can. But I would use it for about the 2 weeks or so it lasted in the hopes that it would somehow help me transform my physique and make me start looking like the pros in the muscle magazine. And surprise, it didn't. In fact, every time I had a protein shake, my stomach never quite felt right. But I felt that that was the price I had to pay to have a really impressive physique. And when it didn't work, I rationalized that just having a can of protein powder here and there for a short period of time wouldn't be enough to make a difference. I needed to have protein shakes on an ongoing basis to really see results. And so when I came to live here in the United States at 20 years old, I did everything possible to make sure I could have a protein shake every day, just like they said. And in so doing, I spent money I really didn't have on tubs of protein powders, on shakes, on bars, because the message was still everywhere. If you want to build muscle as a natural athlete, you need more protein. And the easiest and most convenient way to get it from is from a protein powder. And here's the thing, I'm not alone. Millions of natural lifters out there are doing the exact same thing right now, spending hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars a year on supplements because they've been told that food alone can't do the job. But here's where everything starts to break down. And I noticed it slowly. I was so excited to finally have access to protein shakes on a regular basis. But I'd have a shake after training and I'd feel nothing. No magical recovery. I didn't see any increase in my muscle growth. Everything felt more or less the same, except my stomach never felt right. It always felt a little off whenever I took it. And I used every type of protein powder there was, from the original calcium caseinate that tasted terrible and was almost impossible to mix with anything, to the newer whey protein shakes that mixed really easily and actually tasted good. But regardless of the brand, my stomach never quite felt right, but I soldiered on because I felt, like I said before, it was just the price I had to pay. And here's the thing. I took detailed notes of everything I did, every meal I ate, every workout I did, and I figured I would give it a year or so to see how much progress I would make. And a year later, my training was more or less the same. There was no real increase in the rate of how much stronger I was getting or how bigger I was getting. And my recovery was more or less the same. But there was something else that I did notice a year in. My body fat started to increase. Slowly at first, a little blurring of definition, but it kept increasing until for the first time in my life, I couldn't see my abs. And I'll tell you, that didn't feel comfortable at all, as I didn't always have muscles, but at least I always had abs. But all the bodybuilders in the muscle magazines, like I said, were all saying how critical it was that to make gains, you have to bulk up and put on excess body fat and then cut down to really make improvements. I was never able to do that growing up, as I didn't have the resources to really be in a major surplus. And so I was always lean all year round. And so this was really uncharted territory for me. And it got to a point too where even walking up the stairs didn't quite feel the way it normally would. Normally I just run up the stairs and not even think about it. But I'd find myself out of breath sometimes because I was carrying so much weight. But as bad as it felt, I stuck with it. Because if you're going to do an experiment to see what works, you have to go all in. And I fully believed that this was going to help me grow. So I kept having the shakes and I kept on not feeling that great for a full 4 years. That's right, 4 years. And I blew up to my highest body weight ever of 252 pounds, which was quite an accomplishment for someone who was once the skinniest kid in the class. But like I said, it just felt awful in every way possible. People looked at me differently because I was much bigger than I was before, but I still didn't like it. And I had my first natural bodybuilding competition coming up. And here in the States, I was working with my coach, Ian Mercer, bodybuilding legend. And the first thing Ian said that had to go for my diet was protein shakes. As he said, it wasn't helpful at all when you're trying to dial down to the single-digit body fat percentages, and that I'd be better off eating only solid proteins. Now, as bad as I felt, I was a little bit reluctant, as I had gotten used to that shake after my workout, and also having one at least once a day. But again, I'm the type that if I commit, I go all in, 120%. And so I took Ian's advice and stopped having the shakes. And it was night and day in terms of how I felt. I didn't have that bloated feeling anymore. And I was worried that not having the shakes would mean less recovery and I wouldn't be as strong as I was having them. That didn't happen. Nothing really changed as far as my recovery is concerned. But I was cutting down, and when I came to the US, I weighed in at a cut 198.5 pounds. And I told Ian that I expected to be just as cut at about 230 to 225 pounds. He looked at me and shook his head. And sure enough, when I cut down, I was only 209 pounds. Now I looked pretty impressive, but I had expected more. And I took a full stock of where I was and how much progress I had made. And here's the thing. I had started off before bulking and having protein shakes, eating only 120 grams of protein per day. And that got me from where I started at 125 pounds all the way up to 198.5 pounds over the course of 6 years. If we average it out, that comes out to about 12.5 pounds per year with only 120 grams of solid protein and no shakes. But in 4 years, I barely put on 10 pounds with shakes and a heavily surplus diet. And here's the thing. I cut down, I was in the best shape of my life again. And getting there meant not having protein shakes. So I made a momentous decision right there and then to never have protein shakes again. You see, as far as I was concerned, I had conducted my experiment, I had given it more than 100%. I didn't do much of anything to make me progress any faster or see any real changes in my progression. Let that sink in for a while. Now, I haven't had a protein shake since the 1990s. In fact, every bodybuilding photograph that you've ever seen of me has been with me not using protein shakes. And here's what my diet looks like today after 35 years of training naturally. It's not complicated. I eat real food, whole food, food that hasn't been processed into a powder, stripped of everything that makes it valuable, and then rebranded as somehow essential for your progress. I eat eggs, I eat fish, I eat chicken, I eat beef, I eat oat bran, I eat fruit. I eat the things that have sustained human beings and built strong bodies for thousands of years, long before any supplement company ever existed. I don't count my macros down to the gram because I'm not competing, and also because your body isn't a calculator, it's an organism. And organisms respond to quality and consistency, not precision. And here's what most people miss. Real food doesn't just give you protein. It gives you everything that works with the protein. The fats, the micronutrients, the enzymes, the things your body actually needs to make that protein usable. A scoop of whey in water just doesn't do that. No matter how many artificial vitamins you add to it, it just creates expensive urine. Now here's the part the supplement industry doesn't want you to hear, and also the reason why I'm making this video, because I see it all the time and it hurts me personally every time I see it. The supplement industry survives on your insecurity, and they target natural lifters like us the hardest because they know you're looking for every edge you can get. They know you feel like you're at a disadvantage because you're not using drugs. So they sell you the idea that a powder, a pill, or some formula can close that gap. But it can't. The gap isn't closed by what you consume. It's closed by how you train. I was doing really well with far less. And the real evil is the fact that they make you doubt what's working for you. And I want every one of you out there to know that you already have everything you need to realize your full potential. Everything. And listening to the men and women on drugs always does you a disservice, as they're not on the path that you're on. And you wouldn't ask directions from someone who isn't familiar with the roads you're walking. So please don't make that mistake with enhanced influencers. And instead, put your trust in real food, hard training, intelligent recovery, and in yourself. Because like I said, that's all you need. And it's what I did, and it worked. And if you want to learn more about naturally intense, high-intensity training, or train with me and my staff online, links are below. And also, make sure you watch this video here about protein intake for natural athletes. Thank you so much for tuning in. Know that I believe in you. And as always, Excelsior.